I think it's just the ability to work through all of the painful things that happen in our lives, whether it's in our business life or our work life, whether it's a workout. And I really believe that we all as human beings have this ability to overcome and conquer and plow through and move through. Like, the resiliency in the human being is just remarkable.
Good morning, Jen. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here with you.
Oh, thank you. And I see the beautiful sun coming in, prior to hitting record. I'm like, can you make it brighter? And now it seems like you've got this aura around you. And if it gets too bright, we'll have to, do something, or you have to put on your cool sunglasses or something. But thank you so much for joining us. I am so super excited to talk to you. And for those who don't know you in our community, can you just give a little bit of a background of who you are and what you do and all that fun stuff? And then we're going to get into your story.
Yeah, sure. So I am Jen Harper, the founder and CEO at a company called Cheekbone Beauty Cosmetics. So we are a color cosmetics company. We say everything lips, eyes, and face. And our whole mission, it's been a journey even with our mission, but the whole purpose from the beginning was to create a beauty brand that was here to represent Indigenous faces. And how we do that is through our mission, which is to help every Indigenous person on the planet see and feel their value in the world while we're crafting sustainable color cosmetics. So representation is a big part of our mission, but also as we've moved and grown and evolved, really the kinds of products we put into the world are really unique in the sense that we really use our Indigenous roots, so my Ojibwe culture and heritage, to actually make, create, and develop products. And we look at this in the sense, I've said publicly that Indigenous people are the OGs of sustainability. And so we really took that seriously when we're thinking about what we're putting on our faces as humans and how it's impacting the environment. And can we make products better? And that's the journey that we've put ourselves on.
Wow. And you know what? And I love your products. I'm not going to lie. You and I talked about this and I said we could talk forever because anybody can buy it. I mean, yes, that's where it was born from and the grassroots of it, which the story is so, touching. And it's incredible. But, the color palette, even your packaging, you can see that there is a history behind that, which I so appreciate and love. And for anybody who's looking outside of Jen, I saw your beautiful collection of earrings behind you too. And again, the colors are just so incredible and so beautiful. We have such a short amount of time, and I think you and I could probably talk for days and hours on end. Can I ask you a little bit about, who you were growing up? And I guess I want to know too, did you always know that you were going to do something that stemmed from your grassroots? So just share a little bit about, what you wanted to be when you grew up and sort of, from little girl to, I'd say maybe 14.
Yeah. So for sure. I love that question. Cause I don't think we think about it often enough. And then when we get to it, it's kind of fun to go back in some ways. So one, I just wanted to touch on the point. I've, stolen this statement from my friend Sandra, who created a Mexican luxury skincare brand. And she said Lancome was not just for French people. So when we come into the beauty space through this cultural aspect, our products are definitely made for every human being. So just like these iconic historical brands, again, Cheekbone the same, even though we're bringing this from our Indigenous roots, it is, like you mentioned, and I'm so happy you said that, it is for everyone, all faces. So childhood, I grew up with my mom in a little small town called St. Catharines, just outside of Toronto. And I never imagined ever being in doing the things that I'm doing now at all. These were thoughts that never crossed my mind. So really grew up with not very much, I never realized, I think, we were poor, but we certainly were.
And I love the fact that you bring up you didn't know what you had, but now you said looking back, and it is fun to look back. So many therapists and people say, oh, don't look back. It's always looking forward. I always look back, for the good, the bad, and the indifferent, but also look back to see how far you've come.
Yeah.
So anyways, so you never imagined, what did you want to be when you were younger?
I honestly didn't even have, and I don't even know how to explain this. Like, my mom is an incredible mom in the sense that I really recognize that the confidence maybe I have does come from her. And even though we were really poor, we were always like happy despite all the dysfunction. Like, I know many of us come from dysfunctional families, but I just really feel blessed at the moment. And like, I didn't know what we didn't have, and it doesn't matter either. Do you know what I mean? I was raised by someone who like really taught me that like material things really aren't the things that are going to make us happy anyway, regardless of when you get, and I had to learn the hard way because, as you I always thought that those were the things, acquiring things and achieving goals were going to be the things that brought you happiness. And my mom was always right. It isn't. That's who you are within, and you have to become whole and content with your life and who you are and the place you're in at this very moment. And that contentment, that brings you joy and happiness, not the things or the goals and the success we're all trying to achieve. Like, my mom was the type of mom, my dad and her separated when I was very young. So she was single for most of my childhood until she met my stepdad, but he actually worked away. So even though she was married for a time, never really had a dad figure around. But I remember, like, if I didn't want to go to school for like a week, my mom was the type of person who'd be like, it's okay, call in, like, never like, you need to go get your education and finish this and do this and to achieve all these things and these goals. Very like, I guess, hippie like in this sense, if I'm looking for lack of a better word. I don't know if that's inappropriate to use that word, but I feel like that's my mom is very like, yeah, let's not do that and go do this thing that's more fun. I think this is where real
love and happiness.
Yeah, she's all about like, this is where the real education is anyway, like on the land. And it's so funny. She's not the native, the Ojibwe person. That was my dad. My mom's a white woman, but she'd be like, yeah, let's go pick strawberries instead of going to school or something, right? So very like unstructured childhood. And it's so funny, when I became a parent, I wanted to be nothing like her in that sense that I'm like, my kids are going to have these rules and we're going to make sure there's goals. And it's so funny now when I'm looking back that there needs to be a balance of both, right? There just does. Yeah.
I think balance is everything, but I want to say, I love your mom.
I really do. I appreciate her so much more now.
Yes. Oh, yeah. When you become a parent and you've gone through, you and I have talked about, the fun stages we're in, but I want to go back to the fact that she gave you that confidence, right? I talk a lot. All of my talks are about rock star confidence, this. And I guess I'm going to ask you the question that I typically ask at the end. What is confidence to you? Because for some people, like you said, it's obtaining goals. It's doing this. It's a characteristic. It's something, it's a skill that's learned. There's many different ways that people sort of attach to confidence, but I love the fact that she gave you that freedom. And I did my kids too. I'd always be like, you want to play hooky today? And they're like, can we? They didn't realize like skipping school meant like you don't tell your parents, right? But it was, and they can learn. And you did learn so much from just being a human being out in the real world. I mean, I think we can talk about the whole education system and all the good, bad, and indifferent about that. But you were given that permission, if you will, to be who you needed to be at that moment, which I think is what really instilled the confidence in you as well. So what would you say, what is confidence to you?
Oh, that is such a good question. And I've actually never thought about that in particular. Like, what is confidence? I've been asked other kinds of questions.
Everybody. I feel say that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not alone here, which is good.
No, because it makes you really think. Like, I mean, I'll tell you what confidence is to me, which will give you some time to think about what it is for you. And we can get back to it as well. Confidence to me sort of is a promise that you make to yourself. And that's what confidence is to me. So if you tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to work out twice a week, that's a promise you made to yourself. You didn't say 6 days a week because you know you can't accomplish it.
You're right.
You do say 6 days, and you need to sort of veer from it. You give yourself that grace, the permission, the whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that's internal, and however it is for you, that's a promise you make to yourself, and just to be, the best version of yourself you can be.
So here's the thing. The first thing that came to my mind is confidence to me now at this age is understanding and knowing what I don't know, and that's okay. Recognizing that I don't have to have the answer, and it is possible to figure out those answers, but you don't immediately have to know it. And for some reason, that gives me confidence to know that we have the ability to find the answer. I surely know someone in my circle that could possibly have the answer. And then we have this entire world of information at our fingertips now to find answers. So it's really layered in this thread of humility, which is so interesting because you wouldn't think those two things go together.
I love that. And you know what? You touched on so many important points. You talk about humility or vulnerability, authenticity. I think that is all encompassing in confidence. And I think it's beautiful that you, looking back, you were like, yeah, you know what? My mom did really encourage me to have that. And it is just a belief that you have in yourself. And she was able to say, look, if you don't want to go to school, I believe that this is the right choice for you. So
she hid a lot of things like racism from me. So because my mom's white and I'm Ojibwe, so like a mixed kid, her parents, as an adult, I found out obviously her parents were concerned about me coming into the world as a mixed race. And now growing up, when I did look back too, I recognized that she was protecting me so many times from people and racist situations, right? But as a kid, my mom would make it like it was a game or it was something, oh no, we got to go over here now and do this thing, because she was distracting me from some negative conversation or situation that was happening. And that protected me because I didn't learn about racism until my 20s, to be 100% honest. Yeah.
And you know what? I love that conversation, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't learn till, I guess almost late teens. And even now to this day, everything from racism to sexism still exists.
Yeah.
Arlene Dickinson had put something out on LinkedIn that it was only 54 years ago that women were actually allowed to have a bank account.
Isn't that crazy?
It makes me appreciate, it doesn't seem like that long ago.
No.
So it really makes me appreciate my mom, my grandmother, all of our
what they lived through.
They lived through, they got through. Like we talk about, we're breaking barriers. No, they broke those barriers.
They're the heroes. Yeah.
We're continuing, as their sort of front row sisters to continue that movement. And we're not, yes, we're closing the gap and we're doing all kinds of wonderful things, but I applaud women before us for starting.
1000%.
And they come so far. And your mother and grandmother and great grandma and whatnot, and aunts and whatnot as well. But so you go through school, and do you have any experience after, say, high school? Did you graduate high school? Many successful entrepreneurs do not. So I'm always super interested to hear if you do or not.
So yes, I did. Thankfully, I had great teachers, because I struggled in school terribly. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when I hear that school was such a struggle, and it's probably because I missed so much of it, thanks to mom, but had great teachers and principals in high school. And I know that they really helped me make sure that I was graduating. And then did start at Ryerson, and then business courses, and just was never into it, I felt there was one course when I was at Ryerson and I took it and I'm like, oh, I really love this. And of course it was marketing and business. And that's probably my favorite part of my job here at Cheekbone today. So it's kind of interesting how there's these touch points in your life where you recognize it, and then just really couldn't afford it at some, I had to move back home because I was in Toronto, and moved back to Niagara to live with my mom for a time period, and ended up just working, and then found a great job and a couple more jobs where I felt oh, I could build a career, and got into sales and marketing in the food industry, starting out in the hospitality space. And so then never felt the need to go back or do anything about education. But here's this crazy, I always felt very insecure about not having a degree. that was something that I felt so insecure about. And I love how things just work out, because after starting Cheekbone, I received an honorary doctorate from the Brock University here in the Niagara region, which is something you would never think would happen in your wildest dreams. But it's also just so interesting that I recognize now, like building something like a business or any company, and a lot of entrepreneurs will know, it's like and every MBA student I've ever talked to or hired, really what they're learning about is other entrepreneurs building things. That's what they're reading, case studies. It's like a year of reading case studies or 2 years of reading case studies.
Yeah.
But when you're the entrepreneur, you're actually doing it. So we have real life education in the things that we get to do. And my husband thinks it's hilarious. My kids think it's hilarious that I'm the one in the family that's received this honorary doctorate.
Well, congratulations on that. And it's so true because, I remember all of my, peers and friends, they would go off to college and university. And, like you, I did, a couple things here, a couple things there, but never received a degree. And I was, I think it's in the process of finding yourself sort of out of high school and into your, like there's some people that just go and I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to be this. And it works out great. But no, not me either. But even now, like our kids now, it's like, go to school if you choose, but go find yourself. Don't put yourself that you're going to be, a physicist or what, unless that's really your passion. And it's funny because my older son, I was always like, look, I want you to have the opportunity if you take it. And I remember sitting in his guidance office and, and I'm like, I really want him just to find something, like just to go somewhere to find yourself, like even just a general business course. And he looked at me, goes, Mom, I really don't want to waste your money. And so I think I'm going to work until I find out what I want to do. And guidance counselor kind of closed his books and says, that is the most mature thing I have ever heard anybody say. And, thank God he's not going to put you in debt, $15,000 to $40,000 a year. And away he went. And as, having 4 boys, I kind of had always said, do what you love and love what you do. But there is nothing that replaces that experience, whether it's travel. That's what I'm like, go backpack across Europe.
Yeah.
Go do you until you find your passion. Me personally, and this is not for everybody, I never found that in a classroom. Not ever. I wasn't like geography. Oh my goodness. I loved creative arts. Of course, I loved art. I loved theater. I loved all of that stuff, but it was never a passion. And it sounds like that's what you are talking about as well, which I applaud you and thank you for sharing your story, because so many people feel like I've got to get, a marketing degree, which I'm not, discounting, or I've got to do this and to run my business. And you're like, well, no, I didn't do it, but I still did it and I still got it done. So it's possible. You're giving people, a pathway, and you are an example of somebody. And I'm sure it came with bumps and bruises, which we're going to get to in a moment, but you still did it without a degree.
Yeah.
I'm kind of floored, and I love that. And I celebrate you, and I'm sure your family does too. But it is sort of funny that, you were the one that, no, I'm good. I don't need it. And then look at everything beautiful you've created. So kudos to you. Let's talk about the obstacles. So since our tagline is the struggle is part of the story, what was one big struggle or obstacle? I know there's many. Every entrepreneur's life is littered with obstacles and struggles, and you had to pivot or zig when you thought you were going to zag. What is one thing you remember going, I am throwing in the towel. This is it. I am done. And what got you through it? If there's one that sort of comes to mind.
In the before launching, when it was like, so I had the dream to build this business in January of 2015, 3 native little girls covered in lip gloss. I'm selling fish at the time. And then all this, who is selling fish and then decides to build a makeup company. That's the beginning. And then for like all of 2015 and into 2016, I am like working my full-time job, selling fish during the day, and at night and on the weekend, I am like learning everything I possibly can about business. I read over 100 books in 2 years on business, and I was just absorbed with figuring this out. So we finally get to the point where the plans to launch the brand are, and it's an e-commerce store. So when I'm thinking back now, I'm like chuckling, like that was such a big deal to launch the e-commerce store. And you open an e-commerce store and like what? Your mom shows up and checks out the products because like no one knows about it.
You're
and like
freaking
you have bazillions of marketing dollars. So, and spending those few years building up the social medias for the brand, all the stuff. And so we're going to launch, but really tragically in the September, we launch in November of 2016. And that same year, my brother commits suicide in September of 2016 as well. It is the most painful thing that has happened to me in my life thus far. Well, now I have more things that have happened along the journey as well, but at that point in my life, that was the most painful thing that had happened. And I remember being in the fetal position in my closet and just thinking, like, what is the point? Why go on? Right? Like you get like that because of sadness when you lose someone. And then something just hit me where I was like, no, like this is the reason that Cheekbones existed was for our community and people like my brother, who was also Ojibwe. He lived on the reservation with my dad. He was a youth worker there. He was just in his 30s. He had 3 children. And I'm like, no, this is why I have to go on. And I remember telling him about building this business at our last drive together in Lake of the Woods in Ontario. It's like near Kenora. It's so beautiful. And we were driving down the highway and I'm telling him about the business. I don't even think we had a name when I was having this conversation with him, but he was so excited and couldn't believe that the purpose of this business was from the beginning, we were taking a portion of the profits from every sale of every product and it was going to go back to our community somehow. And in particular, the whole goal from the beginning was to give back to our scholarship fund, right? So that was the goal. In the early days, we didn't have the scholarship fund, but that was and he was like, I'd never heard of a business that can do this. And I was like, yeah, it's called like a social impact business. And there's companies that do this all the time, like Patagonia, Tom's Shoes, like businesses like this can exist and I'm going to try it. And the focus is going to be to support our communities. And he was blown away by that. And his words that day, he said, Jen, oh my goodness, like our youth need hope and they need help. And this business is going to do that. And so on those days, and we know throughout the entrepreneurial journey, there is many of them. I remember his words because it keeps me going. And I firmly believe that the only reason we've been successful is because of losing my brother, because I would have given up if I didn't have a bigger why. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm only being honest. Like, if I didn't have maybe that pain or that reason that, holy crap, my community does need this. Suicide is the highest rate among Indigenous people in the world. Like our communities and our youth kill themselves at higher rates than any other national group, which is insane to me when I think about it, especially in the North. And then understanding how they're impacted because of poverty, because of massive poverty, like their lives are so dramatic. And so if I didn't have all of those things and as my reason why to make this makeup company work, then I might have given up like much, much sooner.
I am so thankful that you shared that story. I have goosebumps. I have tears in my eyes. So first and foremost, obviously, I'm sorry for the loss of your brother. I know you and I talked about this on our first call, and we have a commonality there. It is something that changes you forever. But one thing I loved, and it is so difficult in the moment to realize this, but through every trauma or tragedy, there is a reason. And it sounds like through this terrible thing that happened with your brother, that gave you a clearer picture of your why. That is so beautiful, like honestly. And I wanted to ask, it sounds like the two of you were super close. Would that be a fair statement to say?
So in our childhood, and then I was estranged from my dad and my family for many years because of my dad's addictions. And so in our adult life, we got very close again when we had kids, which was awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. And, you talk about social impact and helping, your community. And that to me is such an amazing why, and giving the hope and the help. And that is something, like you said, that drives you every single day. To have that purpose is so beautiful. Like, I have no words. I'm still trying not to get as choked up as I am, but
I would just wanted to share. And like, because of that, not giving up, like this year, on September 30th, we have this big push where we launch a new product. All the profits go to our scholarship fund. So by 2021, we launched our first scholarship. We gave out one. The next year, 2022, we gave out 5 scholarships. Last year, we gave out 10. And so this year, our goal is 20. And that to me is like, losing my brother has become obviously my big why, and has given this company's mission so much purpose, and that we've been able to fulfill that has been so rewarding.
I love that. And, I guarantee, what was your brother's name?
BJ.
Oh, I love that. And everybody knows the story behind your brother. Obviously, you've talked about it more than just now. And I feel it, just even hearing your story, I feel does give people hope. Would you agree with that?
I feel for sure, most definitely. Not only, my story is so dramatic, I feel like sometimes, because not only did I lose my brother, and I really want to share with people that it's these painful things actually make us stronger in life, as hard as that feels at the time, but it's something we can use to like help us grow. And me as an individual myself, like this whole company only exists because of my sobriety. And then I learned this whole term called generational trauma, which affects not many families. If you have something bad happen in your family or your own childhood, unfortunately, until we course correct, that trauma is going to be passed on from generation, and it's literally lives in your blood. And so for my brother and I, my addiction to alcohol, suicide, these are symptoms of the generational trauma in our family, because my grandparents lived through the residential school system where they were abused, and that trauma was passed on to us, because unfortunately my dad's generation, no one talked about it. Everyone buried it in, and then went and had all these children. And of course, we're all born into this trauma. And so I'm proud that it's our generation that are hopefully course correcting for our next kids. And I want my children's generation to make sure they're taking care of their health and their mental health and all of the things that are super important, so that we don't continue to pass it on.
I love that. And you know what? We really do have to talk about that all on its own in another podcast, because so many people suffer from that. And, there's a lot of experts that say you suffer up to 14 generations of trauma, and it's in your DNA. And sometimes when it's corrected, and, now our generation is talking about it, we are trying to correct it, and we are doing the best. But I think it's going to take a few generations to, like you said, course correct. But it's so beautiful that you're saying, there is hope. There is a way to stop it. And, you talk about things that you have gone through. I don't think you can grow through the good times. I'm sorry. Sitting on, your couch eating potato chips and watching Netflix, nothing good happens there. It is through the trauma. It is through the bad times. And it is through the real difficult times that, when you are in fetal position, in your closet, that you do come out of it, and you do come out of it. Somehow you come out of it, and it's not easy. Even if it's, army crawling it out, or somebody giving a hand and lifting you up, and you're taking baby steps, however it is, you are living proof that you come out of it. You are hope. And, I do think that we have a lot of thanks to give, not only to yourself, but to your brother and to our ancestors that have sort of gone through what they've gone through. There have not been systems and things in place for them, extremely sadly. And so today we are making it, as you said, your social mission and your passion is to correct a lot of this. And you're one person influencing thousands and hopefully hundreds and thousands and millions of people. So for that, I thank you. I feel like we could talk for hours. I have 2 more questions I do not want to miss, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
I want to ask you this. Moving forward, obviously our podcast is called I Am Unbreakable. What does it mean to you? You talk about, again, being in fetal position. People would say that's broken. I would not say that, but some people would think that's broken. What does it mean to you to be unbreakable?
I think it's just the ability to work through all of the painful things that happen in our lives, whether it's in our business life or our work life, whether it's a workout. And I really believe that we all as human beings have this ability to overcome and conquer and plow through and move through. Like, the resiliency in the human being is just remarkable. I'm grateful because for me, I really believe it's the creator of the universe that's helped me get through these things. I have definitely that higher power that I lean on constantly, especially through sobriety. Is like my daily routine. It starts with prayer and gratitude. Like, my life changed when I started waking up every day and literally listing off the things that I'm thankful for. And that could be just an apple, because it's apple season and they taste the best as soon as they or tomatoes season's ending. I don't eat tomatoes any other time of year except right now. Just being grateful. It changed my life. It really did. And I talk about how when I went through sobriety, I really did this entire transformation. I tore myself down to the foundation, to the studs, if you will. And I had to rebuild because I was a really hurt human being, right? And carried so much resentment, but gratitude has changed that for me for sure. And that just gets me through every single day.
Well, I love that. And bravo for your sobriety. Can I ask you, how many years have you been sober?
I will celebrate 10 years, November 26th. Yeah. Super. It's kind of crazy because I know, I'm not an AA person anymore. I just have my daily routines, and I'm really grateful because I get to meet so many other people. Or when you share this publicly, you do get a lot of people. And I love this part because when I was in that hopeless state of addiction where I felt like I would literally I didn't know how I was ever going to stop. Like, alcohol was my life. And when I finally got sober, I recognized that there was a few people publicly that I was paying attention to because I know they were sober. And I realized, oh, this is why they share that, because you never know who's listening and who it may help that day. Someone might recognize that they have a problem, or the fact that you've seen someone else overcome it, because it feels insurmountable when you're going through it and hopeless. And there's no worse feeling than hopelessness. And if me just sharing that I've overcome this helps somebody, then I feel like I've done my job for that time. And I know it's not an easy thing to conquer. So I feel like when you talk about rock star status, I can tell you 6 months into sobriety, and there's science behind this. I didn't know, but I was and this is when I started building Cheekbone too. It was 2 months. I had this dream after I got sober. 2 months, I have this dream about this makeup company, these native little girls covered in lip gloss. And it's 6 months into sobriety, I felt like an absolute rock star. I was I could take on the world. If I could give up alcohol, I could do anything. I believe that that's part of why Cheekbone is successful as well, is because it's just put on a whole new personality of myself at the same time. That doesn't last forever. I wish that feeling, because I remember feeling walking through life at that 6 month point, and I was just woo, nothing can stop me now. This is incredible. It was an incredible feeling. And I was this was my mountain. This addiction was my mountain, and I conquered it. And if I can do that now in life, it's really funny that this what makes me feel like I can do anything. Despite tough year in business right now, I'm you know what? We've already conquered one mountain in life. We can do another one. We can keep going. So it's amazing what that does for you.
Oh, yeah. And I just want to say, you went back exactly to my point, because you said at 6 months, you felt, this rock star confidence, and you felt you could conquer everything. And I believed, and I go back to saying what I said in the beginning, rock star confidence really is the belief system you have within yourself. And that's when you believed in you, whether you were going to make this company work or not, you believed you could.
Yeah.
And, you started living it, breathing it, eating it, and you continued to do so. So bravo for you. And I think, like you said, it is that point where you feel comfortable to share your story. I mean, I built this whole business. Again, it was a passion project, very similar to you, but I felt like stories like yours are so incredibly impactful because you don't know who's listening and watching. It could be one person, it could be a million people. But to me, it's like if we change one life, and one person who is thinking of either taking their life, giving up on being an entrepreneur, thinking they can't do it, thinking they can't get sober, and they hear your incredible story and your journey, because your journey is of struggle and obstacle, as is all of our journey. That's why I've got it. I always show people I've got it tatted somewhere here. The struggle is part of the story. Like it's just part of it. You cannot escape it. If you do, you're not really living a life of any substance.
Like you're not real.
You're not real. Yeah, you're in a museum. Wilma on Fred Flintstone. And then like, I know there's so many things like I still want to ask you about. Now you say, and I'm going to extend a few more minutes. I know you had talked to me privately that there was other things about your dad and whatnot. Do you want to share anything else before I ask my last question that you feel that could have an impact on somebody that is listening to your incredible journey? I mean, I lost my dad and sister, in ways that, we're not going to chat about right now, but it changes you and it makes you appreciate. You talk about living in gratitude and apples and tomatoes. And sometimes it's just putting your 2 feet on the ground and, feeling the floor underneath your feet. It can be so simple because some days we do wake up going, it's only, 6 a.m. I'm already stressed about the kids, about the business, about life. So it is waking up saying, I'm grateful for the small things. Is there anything else that you want to share?
The journey there's been so many things, but just really like forgiveness, letting go of resentment. Both of my parents came from dysfunctional families. They come together, they have me, and they didn't know what the heck they're doing. But now all I think about for both of them, and now I have a good relationship with both of them, is they were doing the best they could with what they had. And that's the simple answer. And I think when you let go of that resentment, like living your life without expectations of people is so freeing. That just lets you live lighter.
I love that. And you talk about forgiveness. There's a lot of people that say, oh, I can never forgive so-and-so. Forgiveness isn't always like what you said. And, same with me. Sadly, I don't have my dad anymore. Sorry. I still have my mom, but sometimes forgiveness, yes, is going to a person and saying, you know what, I forgive you for my shitty, dysfunctional, upbringing. I get it. That's how you were brought up and you didn't know better, but you did the best you could. Like you, I always felt the love. Mm-hmm. But sometimes forgiveness is not speaking it to the other person because sometimes they don't deserve your forgiveness.
No.
But you talk about being free. And I think being free internally is the most important thing. And like you said, forgiving somebody that has wronged you, somebody that's done something horrible, doing that internally to me is worth its weight in gold.
Oh,
like you said, it sounds like that was really empowering to you.
It was. It was. Because I think a lot of my anger and addiction came from the resentment and abandonment you feel from one parent or another. Like it's just, the years of therapy they were wonderful. And I highly encourage it for anyone that needs to deal with our childhood traumas, right? Because that's how you let go of things too. Like, and otherwise we will carry it for the rest of our lives. And it is that feeling of like that contentment, that inner peace, just knowing everyone around me, trying to believe most people are doing the best they can, right? We all run in and have encounters on a daily basis where you're like, they were just being a jerk or whatever, but that's life. Yeah. And then letting that wash off you too, because not holding it, because that will.
And that's hard. Let's go there for 30 seconds because, I feel like as you gain experience and as you get older, you do, and you have to not let their energy or their stuff belong to you because it really doesn't belong to you. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know whatever. I was in a board meeting and there was a fellow that had just lost his wife, completely irrelevant, but he was so incredibly rude to myself, to my board. And, people would say, oh, well, he just lost his wife. And I'm like, I was quiet for a little bit. Yes, I understand. I kept my thoughts to myself. Finally, I just said, because it was constantly, he lost his wife. And it's like, I have a lot of empathy for that. I've tragically lost people in my life as well. It does not give you the permission to treat other people poorly.
No.
And I feel like what you just said, I'm still what my kids call a whip, which is a work in progress, to not let that energy in. I'd say I like 90% of the time got it down packed, but sometimes
we're on the same track, because there's just the odd time where it's like, oh, their energy is just not working with me, and it's rubbing me and it's holding on, and I can't, and it filters through you, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's when I like either go for a power walk. Yeah. Like my thing is like, I just have to get out of the situation and I walk. Yeah. And that just for me is very freeing. It doesn't always work, even after an hour or two. And, people that are very close and tight in my circle are like, do you feel any better? I'm like, not really, but I'm good. Right. And it gives you that grounding. Is there any kind of technique that you use when I do this? Yeah. Same thing. Get outside as quickly as possible and go for a walk or do something physical. Yeah.
To take your energy.
And, I've started this practice where you walk into rooms, different business things or work, and you really do feel other people's energy. It was this last couple of years, especially as we were hiring more employees. I'm like, I am not taking on their stuff like that. That is not, I don't need that. Right. Like, so creating that exterior boundary of, okay, let them do them, but you can't, like, I was like, in my head, I picture like a force field where I'm blocking it off, where it's not going to affect me, and try not to. You're right. We both, like I said, it's a work in progress, because sometimes it can. Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't think people too, unless you deeply think about this on the regular, know how much our energies do impact each other. Because I am very, what's the word?
Very intuitive.
If I have something going on, though, I know I'm giving off the bad energy. Yeah. But I was like, okay, how do I then do that thing in reverse? Like, I'm force fielding myself from someone else's energy, but how do I make sure, even though something is happening in me, not to radiate that, right? So it's like that one I'm still working on, because I was like, I don't want like, say you have, you have a board meeting, you have family things happening. How do I make sure that I'm not showing up and giving off my stressed energy, or whatever what the word for it is, but that's usually what it is. It's stress.
And you and I, will continue to talk, I hope, for many years to come, and we'll figure it out. But I think that is a real gift. I noticed when you and I first talked, I know you're very intuitive, as am I. And I think that's a gift and it's a curse, because when you walk into a room or you meet a person, and it has nothing to do with physical looks. For me, it's everything to do with energy. And I knew walking in there, the energy, the vibe was not, and I still tried to change it. I completely changed what I was going to do. There was no coming back from a train wreck sometimes. And you've just got to realize, what? This is what it is. And people do not like that saying, but sometimes it is what it is. You can do everything humanly possible to kind of change it, shift it, but sometimes you just can't. No. And
who doesn't like that saying? Because there's so much truth in it. Right? I was like, sometimes it is what it is. That's all it is. There's nothing you can do, because we can't change everyone, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you just got to take control of yourself. Now, also when you talk about, and you and I are going to keep like messaging each other how we're, coming to terms with not letting off our negative energy. Because the thing is, I don't know about you, I am so far from perfect. So I find when I'm with my team, whichever business I'm in at the moment, if you're having a day, a couple of days, an hour, I try not to let myself sit there for longer than however long. I mean, sometimes I give myself 5 minutes and I say, okay, you feel like crap for 5 minutes, have your pity party, put it on the shelf. I'll see you at 6 p.m. That's something that sort of worked for me, but not 100% of the time, maybe 80% of the time. Other times I let people know, what, I'm off today. I don't need to talk, but I'm just letting you know I'm off. And these are people that are close in your circle, right? Or what is wrong with taking a mental health day?
No, there's nothing.
Sometimes I'm just like, what, guys, I'm tapping out. I'm here. I have things to do. Sometimes, like you said, I'll tell people I won't. Depends on who the person is. But I think giving ourselves the grace and the permission to not be okay. My son, actually, one of my kids started a t-shirt line. It's okay not to be okay. Right.
Yeah.
And it really is okay if you don't feel good. It's not okay to go for, days and weeks and months, because obviously then you need to see somebody, but to give yourself that, that week of, hey, I don't want to go to school and I want to pick strawberries. Why can't we do that as adults?
Yeah, no, I agree. So important. And it's true. I feel like too, my family gets the brunt of the worst of, because you don't hide, your poor family sees all of your imperfections and gets the brunt of the most of your stress. So I'm also, not only in the workspaces and in public spaces trying to build these boundaries and force fields, but at home, like, okay, work is done. Let me be with my family and not take out any of the work stress on them either. Right.
Yeah. And that, that sounds beautiful in, a movie, but we all know, like you said,
my kids were always like, uh-oh, mom is cleaning. Like if they came if they came home from school and I was cleaning, they were like, they would go hide in their rooms. Yeah.
Same. And you know what? Sometimes they do see the worst of you. And I would be, in therapy going, oh my God, I think I'm going to screw up my kids. And, the best thing that I got out of that therapy session was it's okay for them to see you this way. Yeah. What do you do to recover?
Absolutely.
I do it quickly and I go and say, look, I've had a really bad day. Mm-hmm. You want to hear about it because now they're older. I'll give you some of what I've gone through. And a lot of times, because I've got, older kids and two of them are entrepreneurs and the other one's older, and they want to hear and they're like, oh, what did you? And I think them seeing that resilience, because we are not perfect at all. No. But they look at us, from little kids where they're, and we are perfect. So to say, you know what, I'm not perfect. I got a whole slew of issues. Yep. I'm doing the best exactly what you said. I'm doing the best I can. Sorry for over cleaning or for being too loud or
taking it out on the stove. Yeah.
I know. Oh, it's funny. Yeah. Is the cleaning thing. I think it is because it's actually a workout. Just saying.
Yes, it is. And you're being productive while you're stressing out on the stove.
Exactly.
Or the floor, whatever it is.
Exactly. But, I think it's just being honest with them, because I don't know how your parents were, but it sounds a little bit like your mom kind of shielded you from a lot, as did mine, as opposed to saying, you know what? Yeah, stuff is bad, or people aren't very nice sometimes, or whatever. I think it's just telling them, kind of how we're feeling. Like I'm talking about family and extended family and work family, if you so choose to do that. But you and I are going to have to definitely continue on this. And the last thing I'm going to say too is intuition. Don't you feel like if you listen to your gut, I always say, whether it's a gut feeling, women's intuition, spidey sense, whatever it is, you can feel when something's great. You can feel when something's off. I think we really need to listen to our bodies more. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes. I've definitely regretted not listening to my gut, for sure, in many instances. Yeah.
Yeah, but as we get older, we learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
High five. We're going to conquer this.
Yay.
And publicly, there you go. Thank you so much. Big hug, big love.
Thank you for having me.
Love your mission. Love everything you're doing. Can't wait to feature you in the magazine. I'm going to put all your description and all the fun stuff below. And I would love to have you back for part 2.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.